This is Amara, a beautiful but hardworking young lady who had no silver, no gold, nothing. But yet she has lots of love to offer. She was so kind to the poor old beggar on the street that her stepmother even kicked her out of her house to go live in the street with the poor beggar. Sit, relax, grab your popcorn. Let's go through this amazing story together. The market of Omoko was never quiet. It pulsed with life. Meat sellers shouting over tomato hawkers. Children zigzagging through stalls. The sharp clang of spoons against iron pots. And the scent of roasted corn mixing with dust and diesel fumes. In the middle of it all was Amara, balancing a wooden tray of bread on her head, her tired eyes alert and searching. She was just 18, but life had aged her shoulders. Her father was gone. Her mother, buried beneath the old mango tree by the stream years ago. All she had now was Madame Clara, her stepmother, sharp-tongued and bitter-hearted. Each morning before the sun rose, Madame Clara would bark, "Go and sell all of them, and don't return with a single piece, or I'll give you what you're looking for." So Amara would run to the bakery, collect the loaves on credit, and walk to the market barefoot, dodging puddles, stones, and stray dogs. But every evening, before she headed home, she did something no one understood. She stopped by the roadside and knelt beside a blind beggar. "Good evening, Papa," she would whisper gently. The man, wrapped in a worn, colorless cloth, would tilt his head and smile. His eyes, clouded and white, never moved. He would nod and stretch out trembling hands, and Amara would place a loaf of bread in them. Sometimes two, sometimes the only one she had left. It didn't matter. She would rather go home empty-handed and face Clara's beatings than let the man go hungry. The beggar never said much. He simply muttered, "Bless you, my child," and took tiny bites, like he hadn't eaten in days. And Amara would sit beside him a few minutes more, watching the evening sun disappear behind the hills. She didn't know why she loved the old man. Perhaps because no one had ever called her child since her mother died. Perhaps because he reminded her that someone still needed her, even if the world didn't. But that evening, as she handed him his usual bread, a sharp voice pierced the air. "There she goes again, giving food to the ghost man." Amara turned slowly. It was Madame Ruth, a tomato seller whose mouth was faster than her hands. A few other women joined in. "Does she think feeding a beggar will buy her ticket to heaven?" one sneered. "She doesn't even have food for herself, and she's feeding another hungry soul. Madness." Amara's cheeks burned with shame, but she said nothing. Papa Yaja, as she had come to call him, sensed the tension and turned his head. "Don't listen to them," she said quietly. "Eat. Tomorrow I'll bring banana bread. You like that one?" That night, Amara returned home with no sales and bruises on her back. Madame Clara was furious. "You're feeding a beggar? With my bread? Are you mad?" she screamed, slapping the girl across the face. Amara fell to the floor, her lip bleeding. "I'm sorry," she whispered. But Madame Clara wasn't finished. "If you take one more loaf to that filthy man, you will not step into this house again. Try me and see." Amara sat in the corner of the room, rocking herself slowly. She didn't understand why the world hated kindness. The next morning, Amara rose with her back sore and her heart heavy. She cleaned her bleeding lip, tied her wrapper tightly, and lifted the bread tray onto her head. Madame Clara stood at the door with folded arms. "If you try me today, Amara, if you so much as look at that beggar." Her voice trailed off, but the threat hung like a knife. Amara nodded, but her mind was already made up. The day crawled by. She sold nothing at first. Too many market women now eyed her with scorn. That's the bread girl who feeds blind spirits, one whispered. She's cursed. Yet still she smiled, approached customers politely, and prayed under her breath for just enough sales to satisfy Clara, and one loaf for Papa Yaya. By evening, the sun was sinking like a hot coal behind the clouds. Amara walked past her regular route home and slipped behind a cluster of yam stalls. There at the base of the broken fence by the road sat Papa Jaja, as always, legs crossed, hands on his knees, eyes distant. He seemed more tired today. His breaths were shallow, his shoulders trembling. "Papa," Amara whispered, kneeling before him. "It's me." He turned his head toward her and smiled weakly. "You came." "I promised I would," she replied, handing him the warmest loaf she'd kept hidden under her blouse. "Bless you, my daughter," he said. But before she could respond, a sharp splash of water hit them both. Witches and demons. A group of boys had crept up with a bowl of dirty market water and thrown it at them. "Let the ghost man bless you now," they cackled, running off before Amara could get up. Papa Jaja flinched, but Amara stood tall, soaked and trembling. "Come back and try that again," she screamed, her voice rising for the first time. The market women nearby watched with raised brows, but said nothing. Some even laughed. "She's losing her mind," someone muttered. That night, Amara stood at the gate of her home, dripping, her loaf tray empty. Madame Clara opened the door and took one look at her. "You gave him food again, didn't you?" Amara didn't speak. "I warned you, Amara. I warned you," Madame Clara shouted, dragging her inside by the wrapper. The beating that followed was different. It wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It was final. Madame Clara opened the wooden chest, pulled out Amara's threadbare clothes, and tossed them out the door. "You love that beggar so much," she hissed, "then go and be his daughter." Amara stood there, stunned. It wasn't the pain that stung. It was the cold truth of rejection. She picked up her clothes, silently, wiped her eyes, and turned away. No one stopped her. No one called her back. No one even watched her go. Only the moon, hiding behind a patch of clouds, saw the girl walk barefoot back to the street. When she reached Papa Yaja, he was already lying down, curled in the same dusty cloth. "I have nowhere else to go," Amara whispered, kneeling beside him. He reached out blindly and touched her hand. "You do now," he said. "You are my daughter." Amara laid beside him that night, wrapping half her wrapper around his shoulders. The wind blew harshly. The market dogs howled. The air was cruel. But Amara was calm, because for the first time, someone had claimed her. The market never slept, but it never loved either. The next morning, the sun had not yet risen when Amara opened her eyes to the cold. She was lying on bare sand beside Papa Jaja, her wrapper damp with dew. Her stomach growled with hunger, but she ignored it. The market sweepers moved past them like ghosts. None said a word. A few looked her way with silent pity. Others clicked their tongues. "Shameless girl," one muttered, throwing away her life for a blind man. Amara sat up and adjusted her torn blouse. Papa Jaja was still asleep, his chest rising slowly, the half-eaten loaf from yesterday wrapped in the crook of his elbow. She wanted to cry, but her pride wouldn't let her. Instead, she whispered, "I'll find us food today." It was a promise to both of them. She tucked her things into the corner beside him, an old polythene bag with a wrapper, her cracked Bible, and one broken sandal. Then she stood, fixed her hair as best as she could, and made her way into the heart of the market. But today was worse. No bread to sell, no tray to carry, no Madame Clara to scream at her. Only rejection. Amara walked from stall to stall, begging for a little work. Anything. She offered to sweep, to wash, to carry loads for customers. Your stepmother chased you out, and you want me to help you? Madam Ruth scoffed. Go back to your beggar father. A pepper seller gave her one rotten tomato. A banana hawker tossed her a blackened, half-eaten fruit. Amara smiled and thanked them anyway. She was used to eating less. She just needed something for Papa Jaja too. By noon, her feet were blistered and her mouth dry. She returned to their corner and found Papa Jaja coughing, shivering despite the heat. I'm sorry, she said, kneeling beside him. I didn't get bread today, but here. She offered him the banana, peeled and mashed in her hands. He ate slowly, savoring every bite like a king with a feast. Don't be sorry, he said hoarsely. You've already given me more than food. What have I given you, Papa? She asked. He smiled faintly. A reason to keep breathing. That night the wind rose. What began as a gentle breeze turned into a storm of dust and sorrow. The heavens darkened. Thunder rolled over the horizon, and the market began to scatter like frightened birds. Rain! Someone cried. Within minutes, the sky tore open, pouring out its fury. Amara grabbed her wrapper and tried to cover Papa Jaja, but it was no use. The corner they slept in flooded quickly. Water rose under their feet. Mud splashed up to their knees. A large umbrella merchant nearby slammed his shutters shut and yelled, Stay away from my stall, girl. You'll bring sickness. Amara dragged Papa Jaja to a patch under a broken zinc roof, but the leaks were too many. They were soaked through, shivering like forgotten dogs in a storm. Papa, she cried, pressing against him. Please don't fall sick. Please. He coughed violently, and his head slumped against her shoulder. That was when she saw it. Through the rain, through the mist and chaos, a sleek black car slowed to a stop just a few meters away. Amara froze. No one drove into the market in weather like this, especially not in cars like that. Glossy, foreign, tinted. She squinted through the downpour. The car didn't move. Its engine purred like a panther, but no one stepped out. Then, the tinted glass on the back seat rolled down, just slightly. She couldn't see a face, just the silhouette of a man, watching her, watching them. She blinked water from her eyes, heart pounding. Was he a government official? A foreigner? A kidnapper? But then, the window slowly rolled back up, and the car drove off, smoothly, silently, as if it had never been there at all. Amara stood in the rain, breathless. Who was that? Why was he watching them? By dawn, Papa Jaja had developed a fever. His hands shook, his cuffs rattled his frail body. Amara tore pieces of her wrapper to use as compress cloths. She fetched water in her palms from a leaking tap and cooled his face. She hadn't eaten in 2 days, but still, she smiled and hummed, quietly, brushing his grey hair with her fingers. You'll get better, Papa, she whispered. You have to. That evening, another market woman tossed her a bag of leftover bread ends. Take this and go. I don't want customers thinking you're one of us. Amara bowed in gratitude, tears in her eyes. She fed Papa Jaja piece by piece, biting only what he told her to take. Then, once he was asleep, she rested against the muddy wall, eyes wide open, her mind replaying the moment the black car had stopped. She didn't know who that man was, but she had a strange feeling. This wasn't the end. Something had begun. The sun rose heavy and red the next morning, like an omen. The market woke slowly, still soggy from the storm, its vendors weary, their wares covered in damp tarpaulins. Amara had barely slept. Her bones ached from lying on wet ground, but she didn't care. Her eyes were fixed on Papa Jaja. His fever had worsened. His skin burned to the touch. His body trembled as if something inside was breaking. "I need help," she whispered, brushing his damp forehead. "I need medicine." But who would help her? She had no money, no family, and no name that meant anything but mockery. Still, she stood, stretched her sore limbs, and tightened her wrapper. She had to try. She walked through the market with desperate purpose, stopping at every stall, every familiar face. But the answers were all the same. "Help you? You again? I'm not a charity." She found a small pharmacy shack by the edge of the market. The woman inside looked at her suspiciously. "Medicine? For who?" "My father. He's sick," Amara replied. "He has a fever." "Money?" I don't have, but I can clean your stall for a week." The woman laughed and waved her away. "Leave my shop, beggar child." Amara turned and walked away, cheeks flushed with shame, heart boiling with frustration. As she reached the center of the market, she saw a small crowd gathering around the scene. 2 young boys were pointing and shouting. A police truck had pulled up beside the far stalls. Uniformed men stepped down, yelling at street traders, scattering hawkers like frightened ants. "Illegal squatters," one shouted. "Pack your things now or be arrested." Amara's heart skipped. She ran back toward Papa Yaja's corner, her feet kicking up dust. But it was too late. 2 officers were already standing over him, prodding him with a stick. "Get up, old man. You can't sleep here anymore." "He's sick," Amara cried, rushing forward. They turned to her. "Who are you?" I'm his daughter. Please, he can't move." "Both of you into the van." "No, he's blind. He didn't do anything." One officer grabbed her by the arm and twisted it behind her back. Amara screamed, "Don't resist." "I'm not a thief. He's sick. Let us go." But the officers didn't care. In minutes, she was shoved into the back of the truck, her face against rusted iron bars. Papa Jaja was nowhere in sight. The last glimpse she caught of him, he was slumped sideways as officers argued about whether to leave him or call an ambulance. The van drove off. Inside the detention hall, the air was thick with heat and sweat. Amara sat, curled in a corner, her knees to her chest. Her face throbbed where the officer had slapped her. Her clothes were torn. Her eyes dry from too much crying. The officers laughed and gossiped nearby. She called that old beggar her father. Maybe she's mad. Maybe she's a street thief. Hours passed. Then something shifted. A junior officer entered the station and whispered to his superior. Within seconds, the entire mood changed. The senior officer stood sharply. "Are you sure?" "Yes, sir." The call came from the state office. "Name?" "Jaja Williams." The senior man's face turned pale. "Release the girl, now." "But sir." "Now." Amara didn't understand what was happening. 1 minute she was dirt. The next, they were offering her water, a seat, an apology. "Are you okay?" one asked. She stared at him. "No," she said quietly. "Where is my father?" We're looking into that." Then another man entered. A well-dressed man in a blue suit with polished shoes and a calm, unreadable expression. "Miss Amara," he said. She stiffened. "I've been sent to escort you." "Escort me where?" He didn't answer. He just stepped aside and gestured for her to follow. Something in his tone made her obey. The car they entered wasn't like the one from the stormy night, but it was similar. Clean, air-conditioned, silent. She clutched her hands in her lap, afraid to ask questions. After 30 minutes of quiet roads and winding bends, they stopped at a large black gate, guarded by men in white. The gates opened without a word. Inside was a compound like she had never seen. Flower beds, tiled paths, white pillars, and a house that looked like a palace. "Where are we?" she asked. "You're safe now," the man said. They led her into a warm, candle-lit room with velvet chairs and golden lamps. At the center of it all sat Papa Yaja. She gasped. He was clean. His face was shaved. He was dressed in a white robe with gold trim. His feet rested in soft slippers. "Papa," she breathed. He smiled. "My daughter." She ran to him, dropped to her knees, and held his hand tightly. "What is happening?" He placed a hand on her head. "You've suffered enough," he said gently. "But how did you... Where are we?" He didn't answer. Not yet. His eyes remained blind, his voice gentle. But there was something in the air. A storm was still coming, and Amara could feel it in her bones. Amara didn't sleep that night. Not because the bed was too soft, or the air too cool, or the silk nightgown they gave her too fine, but because nothing made sense. She lay beneath a ceiling of stars, painted into the plaster, listening to the silence of a house that felt more like a temple than a home. No mosquito buzzed, no night cries, no dogs barking in the distance, just stillness and her thoughts. Who was Papa Haha? Where had the rags gone? How did a beggar, who had nothing but sand and silence, suddenly command police officers and own palaces? The next morning, she dressed in the gown they gave her and stepped cautiously into the hallway. A woman in a black suit was waiting. "Miss Amara, please follow me." "Where are we going?" she asked. "You have a visitor." They led her to a large sitting room with glass walls and a view of a garden blooming with hibiscus and orchids. Sitting at the far end of the room was a man in his 40s. He was sharply dressed, clean-shaven, with a tablet in one hand and a glass of orange juice in the other. When he saw her, he stood immediately. "Amara," he said with a warm smile. "Please sit." She remained standing. "Who are you?" "I'm Mr. Anayo, personal assistant to Chief Jaja Williams." She stared at him, stunned. "You mean Papa Jaja?" He nodded. "Yes, that's his full name. You may not know it, but you've been sitting beside one of the most powerful men in Africa for weeks." Amara dropped into the nearest chair. "I don't understand." Mr. Anayo folded his hands and leaned forward. "You were chosen, Amara. Chief Jaja has been searching. Not for power, not for profit, but for character. For someone pure, genuine. Someone who shows kindness without knowing they are being watched." He tapped on his tablet and turned it toward her. On the screen was a grainy video. It was her, kneeling beside Papa Jaya, offering him bread, shielding him from rain with her wrapper. From a distance, someone had filmed it. She covered her mouth. "Why? Why were you filming me?" "It was not to mock you," he said gently. "It was to confirm what the chief suspected. Suspected. That the world has not run out of good hearts." She shook her head. "But I'm no one. I'm not educated. I'm not rich. I sleep on sand." "You were rich where it mattered," Mr. Anayo said. Silence filled the room like music. Then he placed the tablet down and cleared his throat. "I have been sent to deliver a message on behalf of Chief Jaja." Amara's heart pounded. "What message?" He smiled, slow and deliberate. "He would like to know if you are willing to marry his only son." The room spun. Amara grabbed the side of the chair. "Marry who?" "His son, Cheek. He lives abroad. The chief has met hundreds of women, daughters of ministers, models, even actresses, but none of them offered bread to a beggar." Amara stood abruptly. "This is a joke, right? You're playing with me." "No, Amara. You're not a joke. You are the answer." Tears filled her eyes. "I don't even know how to sit at a rich man's table. I don't have shoes. I can't speak big English." "You have something more valuable," he said calmly. compassion. Amara backed away slowly, shaking her head. I'm just a poor girl. The market mocked me. My stepmother threw me out, which is exactly why you deserve everything that's coming. She was quiet. Mr. Anayo stood. Chike arrives tonight. If you wish, you can meet him. I don't know. Take your time. No one will force you. But remember, Chief Jaja has chosen you not because of what you have, but because of who you are. He left her standing in the garden view room, the silence now heavy with 1,000 dreams. Later that evening, as dusk fell in golden waves across the lawn, a new car arrived. Amara watched from the upstairs window. A tall young man stepped out. He was dressed in a white shirt, with a calm elegance that made him look like he had walked out of a storybook. But his eyes, they held warmth. He looked up. Their eyes met, and he smiled. Amara stumbled back from the window, her hands trembling. Everything she had known, mud, hunger, shame, was being swept away by something she didn't yet understand. Not yet, but soon. The chandelier in the dining hall glowed like a crown of fire above their heads. The long glass table stretched across the room, decorated with plates of steaming rice, spicy grilled chicken, jollof so perfect it shimmered, and juice poured into crystal glasses that clinked like fine wind chimes. Amara sat at the end of the table, her fingers stiff on her lap. Her dress was cream-colored silk, soft as morning mist, her hair braided neatly by housemaids, who treated her like royalty. But inside, she was still the bread girl, the girl who once fed on scraps, who slept on dust. Across from her sat Chaik. He was kind, charming, and so easy to talk to that it terrified her. He didn't speak like a rich boy. He listened when she talked about her mother, her struggles, even the mocking voices at the market. And when she told him about the day she was chased out of her home, he said quietly, I'm sorry the world was so cruel to you. Amara blinked. No one had ever said those words to her before. Not once. Still, she didn't understand why someone like him was here. Why he looked at her like she was more than just a market girl with cracked feet and trembling hands. Later that night, as the air cooled and the stars glimmered like gossiping eyes, Chief Jaja invited her to his study. The room was lined with shelves of old books, portraits, and scented wood. A fireplace flickered in the corner, though the night wasn't cold. He stood beside the window, dressed in white, his back to her. Come, he said. Amara stepped forward. Sit. She obeyed. I know you have many questions, he began. Too many, she whispered. He turned slowly and smiled. His eyes, once clouded and blind, were clear now, sharp and full of life. Amara gasped. Your eyes. Yes, he said. I was never blind. She stood up, stunned. But the white eyes, the shaking hands. Disguise, he said. Nothing more. Why? She asked, her voice breaking. Why would you pretend to be poor, to live in filth? Why would you lie to me? Chief Jaja walked toward her and placed a hand on her shoulder. Because I needed to find the truth, he said softly. Not about you, but about humanity. She looked at him, her face pale with shock. I've spent decades building empires, making money, sitting beside presidents and kings. But I grew tired, Amara. Tired of fake smiles. Tired of people who only show love when they know they can gain something. He paused. So I disguised myself. I went into the streets. I watched. I waited. I became nothing, just to see who would treat me like something. Amara's knees buckled, and she sank back into the chair. Tears spilled freely down her cheeks. You saw me when I was invisible to everyone. You made me visible again, he replied. They sat in silence for a long while. Then Chief Jaja reached into the drawer and brought out a box. He opened it slowly. Inside was a simple necklace, gold, with a single emerald teardrop hanging from the center. "It belonged to my late wife," he said. "She was kind like you, brave like you. She fed strangers and prayed for beggars, even when I told her to stop." He took the necklace and gently placed it around Amara's neck. "My son has seen you. He has spoken to you, and he has already said he wants to walk this life with you." Amara's lips trembled. "Do you think I'm enough for him?" Chief Jaja knelt beside her, a billionaire bowing before a girl who once ate banana peels on the street. "You are more than enough. You are the answer I prayed for." She sobbed into her hands. "Then why does it hurt so much to believe this is real?" "Because the world trained you to expect pain," he said gently. "But not anymore. From now on, you are never going to be alone." That night, Amara walked out to the garden, barefoot, necklace glowing faintly against her chest. Chick was waiting. He saw her tears and opened his arms. And for the first time in her life, Amara fell into an embrace that didn't want to break her, but to hold her whole. In that moment, the girl who had once knelt beside a blind beggar in the dust became the bride of a prince. Amara and Chike's wedding would be luxury. Umoko had never seen anything like it. From the town square to the smallest kiosk, the talk of the day was the same. Amara, the market girl who used to sell bread barefoot, was getting married to a billionaire's son. Vendors gasped in disbelief. Neighbors blinked in awe. The women who once mocked her whispered behind canopies of powdered faces, wearing gel that trembled with envy. She used to sweep this market. She slept beside a beggar. She's marrying Chief Jaja's son. And while the town buzzed with disbelief, inside the grand white cathedral at the heart of the city, Amara stood before a wall-sized mirror. Her gown shimmered like morning dew, layers of silk, lace, and elegance that kissed the ground. Her hair was woven into a crown of braids, studded with diamonds. Around her neck hung the emerald teardrop Chief Jaja had given her. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from wonder. She could still hear Clara's voice echoing from the past. "Useless girl. Dirty child. Who will ever want you?" Now, dignitaries sat waiting. Governors, ambassadors, even a foreign princess. And at the altar stood Chiki, dressed in a white tuxedo, eyes locked on the doors she would soon walk through. But there was one more twister left. Outside the cathedral gates, a commotion stirred. An older woman in tattered clothes pushed through the crowd, her wrapper uneven, her face streaked with dust and sweat. It was Madame Clara. Her voice trembled. "Please, let me in. I must see her. She's my daughter." The guard stepped forward. "Sorry, ma. Private invitation only. I raised her. She lived under my roof." "You threw her out," someone in the crowd muttered. "She fed a beggar," Clara snapped, her pride still fighting, even in ruin. "She wasted food. And now the beggar owns this building," a woman said coldly. Madame Clara's legs gave way, and she fell to her knees on the ground, sobbing. "I was wrong. I didn't know. Please, I just want to say sorry." Inside, as the bridal procession prepared to begin, Amara paused. Through the stained glass window, she saw her, Madame Clara, on the ground, weeping. "Should I send her away?" Chief Jaja asked softly, his arm linked in hers to walk her down the aisle. Amara looked down at her gown, then at the necklace, then at her reflection. And she remembered. She remembered the slaps, the hunger, the market stones, the rain, the dust, the banana peel. But she also remembered something else. The blind beggar who smiled at her every evening. The first time someone called her daughter. The moment someone chose her, when no one else did. She turned to Chief Jaja and whispered, "I want to see her." One last time. The doors opened. Gasps swept through the cathedral like wind through dry leaves. Amara stepped out, glowing like royalty, yet walking like a child reborn. Her gown shimmered, her veil lifted by the breeze, her hands folded with grace. Madame Clara looked up and froze. Amara, the girl who I once knelt before a beggar, now stood tall before the woman who cast her aside. "I forgive you," Amara said. Clara burst into tears. "I don't deserve it. I was wicked, jealous, blind." Amara knelt down and touched her hand gently. "I'm not your burden anymore," she whispered. "I'm a daughter of grace now." And then, without another word, she rose and walked back toward the cathedral. The crowd parted. The music swelled. The bells rang. Inside, Chike waited, eyes glistening. And as Amara walked down the aisle, flanked by Chief Jaja, the man she had once fed with her last loaf, the cathedral wept, not from sorrow, but from awe. That night under the stars, the wedding reception lit up the city. Fireworks painted the sky. Musicians from 3 countries performed. Foreign dignitaries danced beside old market women. And at the center of it all, Amara stood with Chike, his hand around her waist, her smile brighter than all the chandeliers combined. As the last song played, she leaned in and whispered, "I used to think kindness was weakness." Chike smiled. "Now you know it's a crown." And together, they danced. The girl who once had nothing, now had everything. Because she chose love when the world offered her hate, and heaven had rewarded her for it.